Hello everybody, it is time to talk about the Western side of the timeless melody censorship drama. We have already seen the full Chinese side, and majority of these posts were made after also seeing at least part of the Chinese side, especially the people that said that Nikki should be flattened in the chest or that she is very indecent. It has hit the Western population especially hard, and there have been quite a few posts made in support of Nikki and talking about the conversational topics that we have seen previously discussed in the Chinese setting. So, if you haven't seen the previous video, it is literally the video that was uploaded before this one yesterday. Go and watch that one first. If you have already watched it, hello, I'm Mirta. Let's talk about the Western reaction to the censorship of the timeless melody alternative version. Let's start with a lot of very wordy, very well-written posts. Infinity Nikki deserves more artistic freedom. Recently, I've become concerned about what feels like a growing trend of forced modesty in Infinity Nikki by the Chinese group, how community call their like Nikki's moms. Over the past days, we have seen discussions surrounding outfit designs, character presentation, and story content, often driven by a small but vocal group of players who insist on treating Nikki as if she were a child. As a result, many players worry that creative decisions may be becoming increasingly restricted. Infinity Nikki is a gacha game with in-game purchases and a PG-13 rating. While it remains a cozy and accessible experience, its audience is not exclusively children. Many players are teenagers, young adults, and adults who enjoy fashion storytelling, photography, and character customization. Because of that, I believe the game should be allowed to explore more mature themes, more diverse outfit designs, and more nuanced storytelling without immediately being accused of being inappropriate. Of course, there will always be people who will try to sexualize characters. Unfortunately, that happens in virtually every gaming community. However, I don't believe restricting artistic expression is the solution. Instead, communities should continue reporting inappropriate content, enforcing community rules, and discouraging harmful behavior when it appears. If you share similar concerns, I encourage you to respectfully submit feedback through the currently available survey forms or contact customer support directly. Constructive, organized, and respectful feedback is often much more effective than arguments on social media. My request is simple. Allow greater artistic freedom in outfit design. Trust the maturity of the game's intended audience. Avoid treating Nikki exclusively as a child. Continue moderating inappropriate behavior through community management rather than restricting creative content. Consider whether the game's rating and target audience are being represented consistently. I would also add a tiny bit into the argument. In my opinion, gacha games, they fall into the gambling game category. I don't think that exposing anyone that's below the age of 18, no matter how responsible you are with the way that you're exposing your child to this, I don't think that this is the place for anyone that's not at least 18 years old. The same way that I don't think a casino is a place for a child, even if you're trying to be responsible in how you explain restriction and gambling, it's just not a place where a minor should be hanging around. And I do know that that's quite a hardline stance for me to hold, because I do know that quite a few people grew up with Love Nikki and Shining Nikki and didn't get to have all the outfits and learn self-control that way. But I would still say that gacha should be very heavily categorized as gambling, and there shouldn't be a space for children. And I too would like the audience to be treated as mature adults, because I believe that even on the younger side, majority of the audience for this game will be actual adults. Now, this has been a very big part of the protest, tastefully styling Nikki's cleavage despite the ones who want it censored. Feel free to join in. Please keep it tasteful and remember the subreddit rules. Suggestive images are allowed, but please tag them as not safe for work. Kissing is not safe for work. Also, please remember to submit feedback on the issue via surveys or directly to the email that leads to Infold Games. This is not just about censorship, but about false advertising and changing visual details of content people have already paid for. This has been the part of the whole community project that has blown up the most, mostly because people like styling. This is a very visual media game, so of course people will join in with any kind of protest that calls for styling the most. And I will say that the emphasis was not on sexualize Nikki, but on please show how you tastefully style Nikki's cleavage, aka let's accept that part of ourselves as just being a part of a normal woman's body, and let's allow our Nikki to enjoy the freedom of dressing up in a dress-up game. And as such, because the whole thing is, circling around the cleavage area, let's just present it in a tasteful manner. It was, in general, well-meaning organized protest, but it was also the part of the protest that became the most viewed, the most harkened back to, and almost like the focus of the whole protest. And some posts later on do kind of push back against that, and we're gonna see that too. Then there was a post that called it back to focus on timeless melody, censorship in particular, and it was called The Scandalous Neckline Infold Decided to Change. Here are all the pictures I have of the original version of the timeless melody alternative dress. This is what Infold decided to remove from the game without warning players, or even removing the advertising of the original dress. Yes, the neckline looks low from certain angles or with specific poses, but it's nothing I think deserved changing without prior notice. Players also received zero compensation for this change. When they changed the snowflake contacts from permanent banner, they announced the change to players and gave 10 permanent banner pulls as compensation. The contacts cost 20 pulls to get from the permanent banner, and we got 10 pulls. Since the final evolutions can cost up to 400 revelation crystals, I think it's only fair Infold should send 200 crystals to my inbox to compensate me. If Infold won't give us the dress that was advertised, they need to compensate players that pulled for this dress. Please contact Infold directly and ask them to revert the change to the dress or compensate players. These are all pictures of the original dress, and yeah, the neckline could be interpreted as low, but it's nothing like that low or that spectacular compared to everything else in the game. Like, we had necklines like these before, so I don't quite get the outrage myself, and I do thank this person for keeping the conversation on the particular item that was changed. We, the people of Infinity Nikki, are tired of this unnecessary censorship. Had to repost because of a typo, but anyways, we don't want to sexualize Nikki, we just want to take beautiful photos that capture the body she has. It's 2026, it's entirely unnecessary to censor her body to the extent that Infold is pushing. And it's not right to change a dress after it's been released to please a minority who complain about her body. Finally, a good reason to share this build. I only included it because it's kind of funny, honestly. But you can see how a lot of the protest was just focusing on the cleavage aspect, which made it kind of lose its thread a little bit through, and there was a bit of community infighting because of that later down the line. This was totally built just for this and absolutely didn't exist for way longer and definitely hasn't been my desktop background for at least 2 months. Anyways, please don't take away my boobs Infold. Here's my take on the cleavage situation. This is just my take on the cleavage situation. I don't think it blew up just because Nikki has cleavage. It feels more like years of build-up frustration across the Nikki games in general, especially from how some Nikki mom players tend to police how others play. Like, you can't really post anything that isn't super cute without getting flamed. You can't ship Nikki with whoever you want. Nikki has to stay pure and modest, and it starts feeling like you have to play this dress-up game my way, according to my aesthetics. Even fanfiction gets policed. And it's not just outfits, even criticism of Nikki or the story gets shut down sometimes. God forbid another NPC gets a bit more screen time or Nikki is in the absolute center of everything. In Infinity Nikki, the story can feel kind of bland, and there's not much conflict or rivalry, so it gets repetitive. I used to be really into the lore, but now honestly I just log in for the dresses. And after getting pushed back by that side of the community for so long, I think a lot of players just hit the breaking point. And Info's response didn't help either. It just made things worse. At this point, it really feels like there's a clash between different player expectations, and it keeps it escalating. Now, something that's a bit funny with the whole lore and story, I had seen another post of a person that was asking for a YouTuber that primarily does like lore and story exploration of Infinity Nikki, and there just isn't any. The most recommended one is Moon Sugarcake because she does do lore deep dives and she does do speculation, but that's not the only thing that she does, and the person wanted a YouTuber that would only focus on that. I think part of the implied shallowness is why we don't really have that. And it's also the reason why I wanted to make these videos after I discussed the whole post about Chinese players policing other Chinese players on the fanfiction that they write. Because I think that this is a consistent singular line where some problem players kind of want to keep the story shallow, and they're also the same players that want to keep Nikki pure. So I feel like it's an important context, and this person is also connecting two and two together. So yeah, I feel like we do need more mature storytelling that sticks patch to patch with repetitive characters appearing in order to have the people that want to enter the community, that want to do lore deep dives, that want to talk about characters. You kind of need that fleshed out area for the game to prosper, and we don't quite have that. And it feels like the reason why we don't quite have that is the same reason why Timeless, well, the alternative evolution got censored, if you kinda catch my drift. Women's bodies should be celebrated, not covered up and erased. In my mind, female empowerment is about giving women more choices, not allowing their lives to be dictated by what men might think. I know this may seem like an overreaction to a game changing one outfit, but it infuriates me because it mirrors a larger trend in the media and public consciousness. There's this whole thing now about dressing for the male gaze that honestly feels like modern day slut shaming, but framing it as feminism. Women should not have to constantly live their lives in fear of being sexualized just for having a body and not wanting to pretend their breasts don't even exist. The Nikki Mom attitude feels like continuation of this puritanical idea that women are responsible for how other people react to them. If some men sexualize Nikki, I honestly don't care. Their opinions should not stop anyone from dressing the way they want in-game or real life. You cannot control what other people think. People will sexualize literally anything, and it's not just men doing it either. It's not like women are pure innocent creatures and men are sexual deviants, and anyone who thinks so is delusional. It's not wrong for women to be confident in their sexuality or dress freely and comfortably. I respect all women that want to be more modest or dress Nikki modestly, and I think that this game has plenty of modest options for free and to pull for. We're missing a hijab, but otherwise you can pretty much cover all of Nikki pretty easily. But that should always be a choice and never a requirement. Being told you can't dress a certain way is never empowering. Too long didn't read. If Info changes born flawless, I'm coming for them. Also, sorry I veered so far off topic. I just feel this is a very safe and welcoming community, So I get too cozy and started spilling my guts. I do kind of agree that there is a lot of media that's geared to getting you off. So, in my opinion, if what gets you off is Infinity Nikki specifically, that's a bit weird because there's more nudie media that's a lot easier to access that's made for that purpose. So, like, if you're coming to a women's dress up game, to, like, specifically sexualize a character by putting her in more nudie outfits to get yourself off, that just feels like there's a lot of hoop jumping. So, I don't feel like this game is actually being used this way. So, the whole puritanical censorship point of view and just like projection onto this game and saying that it has to be pure and censored in case somebody sexualizes Nikki, it doesn't quite make sense because that's not the audience that's like playing. How fast Infold reacted is actually disappointing to me. Given Infold's track record of radio silence, it's somehow extremely disheartening to see them react like immediately to the purity police. What about many other issues? It took them a year to implement basic quality of life features in home, and we still don't have wallpapers, only walls. Then there's the whole pants over shoes debacle. The missing wardrobe optimization. No proper way to showcase makeup, let alone alternative makeup, let alone of different skin tones. The fucked up zooms in dyeing and wardrobe both. I could go on. Why are they reacting so fast now? So disheartening. We're literally nothing to them. And I am also very suspicious about this whole topic because the pushback against this was quite vocal, also came from VIP players, so the fact that they censored Timeless Melody and it has been radio silence ever since is also quite suspicious to me. Like, who precisely told them to do this? That this is the way that they handled the situation, As someone who was told growing up that my breasts are obscene, here's my application to the titty committee, because yes, this is what people called the protest for a while. As I said, taking tasteful pictures of Nikki's cleavage was a big part of this, so people started calling themselves the titty committee. I was 11 to 12. I had a humongous, sarcasm if not obvious, B-cup at the time. The lovingly concerned comment was made by my Asian mother. Spent many years wearing shapeless loose tents to hide them in my teens. Let Nikki embrace being a woman. There's nothing shameful about it. It hit a lot of people in the West very, very, very personally because these kind of comments of it's on you how you dress and there is something shameful with the woman's body it's a sentiment that's echoed in religious media. It's a sentiment that's echoed in media quite a lot. So it hit Western women especially hard. Now, a bit of a sidetrack, a whole bunch of people got horrified by the fact that a lot of clothing in this game has a panel to hide breasts. And that panel oftentimes mismatches the skin tone because it's kind of made for the palest skin tones and matches those the best. Now, mind you, this isn't a new addition. This has been in the game the whole time, but there is a part of people that got outraged over it now and wanted the panels to be gone as a response to the censorship. I found 4 boob panels in my wardrobe, including Queen's Move, paid shop item. I investigated everything in my wardrobe only to find 4 hideous boob panels, the most egregious of which is Queen's Move, a paid shop item I bought on the recent rerun, and Scarecrow, a 4-star on the 5-star Rainfall and Blossoms banner. Had I known those two paid 4 stars were censored, I never would have acquired them in the first place, and that's especially true for the Scarecrow since it's exclusive to the 5-star banner. If that means not having the witch outfit, so be it, but it's too late now, isn't it? I just feel so disheartened by this entire debacle. So they are showing the pictures of specifically the Modesty panel. And this one on the free-to-play item is especially egregious because the previous ones, they're kind of small, and this one is just like it's a whole line over here. And this is a fireworks islands ability outfit. I also didn't realize that it has a censorship panel, and some of these don't quite make sense. Like, when it's a boob window, it's a bit more obvious, but like, when it's a fairly straight cut fabric, and you're adding like a modesty panel on top over here, design-wise, I'm not gonna get mad about it, but like, design-wise, it doesn't quite... I don't understand the purpose of it, if you get what I mean. There has been another topic about this, and this one is especially egregious, and it makes me so happy that I didn't get the 2.6's 5-star, even though I was kind of being seduced by the sleeves by the end of it, because look at what happens when you photograph it from the front. It looks super unnatural, doesn't it? And this is what you see when you photograph it from the side. Like, it has a modesty panel, but whenever you're photographing it from the front, it just... That's not how a human body is, which is why it just looks so friggin' bizarre, and why a lot of people just kind of had an issue with modesty panels. Now, mind you, there has been quite a bit of pushback as well. So let me read topics to do with the pushback. The reason I fell in love with Infinity Nikki is the same reason I'm worried right now. Hi everyone! My girlfriend and I have been playing Infinity Nikki since launch, and I genuinely love this game. Mind you, I'm pretty sure that the opinion poster is a woman, and it's just like a gay woman, mostly because they have a picture of them doing something with their hands in a different post, and they seem to have fairly slender hands with dyed nails, so I might be misrepresenting it, but a lot of people kind of got angry with the poster and told them that they're mansplaining feminism to other women here, where I'm like, I'm not too sure that the poster is a man, so like, keep that in mind. Sorry, my fire alarm went off. My girlfriend and I have been playing Infinity Nikki since launch, and I genuinely love this game. For me, it's became a rare safe space away from many of the things I dislike about the modern gaming industry, especially gacha gaming communities. I want to share something personal. For a long time, I had serious issues with the way I viewed women. It got to a point where it was harmful to both myself and to the people around me. I often viewed women primarily through the lens of attraction and struggled to see the person behind that. Coming to terms with this was difficult. I started working with a therapist and spent a lot of time reading feminist literature, gender studies, and discussions about the objectification of women. Over time, I became to understand how deeply our culture normalizes the idea that women's bodies exist primarily for the male gaze and male pleasure. That is why what has been happening on the subreddit has been so disappointing to me. I see endless discussions about breast size, camera angles, body-focused viewing options, and demands to remove any restrictions that prevent players from examining female characters in certain ways. At the same time, I see people from other gaming communities celebrating it and saying things like, "Soon this game will fall too." That word, fall, is what stands out to me, because it suggests that some people see the existence of a space where female characters are not primarily designed for sexual consumption as a problem that needs to be fixed. I don't think this is really about censorship. Feminism has never been about banning attractive women, beauty, or sexuality. At its core, feminism is about recognizing that women are far more than objects of desire. It's about allowing women to exist as complete human beings and protagonists of their own stories rather than decorations for someone else's gaze. That is what I found in Infinity Nikki. I didn't fall in love with this game because it was non-sexual. I fell in love with it because for once it put creativity, friendship, emotions, and self-expression at the center instead of constantly catering to male fantasies. Games like that are rare. That's why it makes me sad to watch parts of this community reduce the conversation back to breasts, bodies, and the ability to look at a character from specific angles. As someone who used to be exactly that kind of person who would have supported these demands, I can say that it does not lead to healthier attitudes towards women. It does not help people see women as individuals. It does not challenge objectification. Quite the opposite. The person I used to be would have been thrilled by what is happening right now. And that is exactly why it worries me. I'm not gonna respond to this whole post. All I'm gonna say is that I see exactly nothing inappropriate about the original alternative version of Timeless Melody, and a lot of the whole boob talk started because people wanted to cover up Nikki's boobs and, like, flatten her. It was not accepted as just being a part of her. Hence why this whole debacle has started. It's not that people want Nikki to be an 18 plus sexualized game, it's that they want Nikki's body to be accepted for what it is, a woman's body. So, gonna move on, and all I'm gonna say is, like, if I disagree with somebody, don't, like, pile on them, because I also received quite a few messages where people are telling me that I'm scary, because whenever somebody disagrees with me, there's a hate mob that then follows them around. We're not that kind of people, so that's their expression. I'm just showing you that there's dissenting points of view, and even though I don't agree with them, they have the right to exist as well. Titty Committee, I can't agree with you on modesty panels. Let me explain. First, let's get some stuff out of the way. I disagree with the change to the Timeless Melody alternative evolution. Infold should never make aesthetic changes or nerfs to outfit abilities for that matter after release. I disagree with the Nikki moms who are demanding changes to existing outfits to cover up Nikki. I disagree with the idea that boobs are inherently sexual and inappropriate. Some of my favorite dresses in Infinity Nikki are those that show off in Nikki's curves. However, I'm also a woman with very large breasts in real life. Sometimes I wish I was flat. I wish I wasn't the object of unwanted male attention because of my breast size. It's not something I can easily escape in real life unless I were to bind my chest. And sometimes that desire translates into games. I want to be able to enjoy fashion in a way that I can't in real life. That is with minimal to no cleavage, with a flatter shape rather than obvious curves, etc. Obviously, the problem isn't that fashion or the body type itself, but the social context imposing unfair standards upon it. But nonetheless, that's the reality I live in. That's why sometimes I find it appealing to dress up an avatar in a way that minimizes her breasts. This gets to my point about existing modesty panels in the outfits and games. I do believe that this is a design aesthetic choice by the artists, one that allows them to cater to players with different aesthetic preferences. Why do I say this? Let's look at Flutterstorm, the dress with the most obvious modesty panel. That was released at the same time as Blooming Dreams, one of the outfits with the cleavage that Nikki moms want to be censored. One dress obscures cleavage, one shows it. Both were released from day one as a side-by-side banners. Couldn't this be a decision by the artists to provide variety in fashion choices, styles that appeal to players who don't want to show off cleavage in their outfits for whatever reason, and styles that appeal to players who do? Isn't calling previous modesty panels censorship and demanding that they be changed a similar line of thought as demanding that outfits without modesty panels be changed to have them? In both cases, one type of player is trying to dictate all fashion in the game based on their personal preferences. We have very similar post here. Modesty panels are not the problem. None of the outfits with modesty panels were changed. All of them have always had that layer of mesh. Timeless Melody's alternative form is the only outfit that was actually changed, and the one people should be contacting Infold about. The problem isn't that some outfits are modest. The problem is that changing outfits after people bought them is wrong. Asking Infold to remove the mesh from old outfits is just as wrong as asking them to add fabric to outfits to censor them. I'm not okay with Infold sneakily changing any outfit design after release. If you didn't notice the panels before and don't like them, that's a problem with Infold not giving us better preview options or the mesh not blending as well on the all skin tones. Some outfits, having them is not inherently a problem. This is a fashion game at its core. I think having both modest and sexy clothing options to let players dress Nikki how they want is awesome. Policing what kind of outfits other players like or want to use from either side is wrong. Changing outfits after release is wrong. Let's stop freaking out about modesty panels and focus on timeless melody, since that outfit actually was changed. I do agree with caveats. One, I wasn't even aware that some of the outfits that I had modesty panels. When I actually took a look at them more in depth, because I tend to play with a pale-skinned Nikki, it was honestly kind of silly, because a lot of these outfits don't actually need a modesty panel. However, I am not advocating that we change any outfits that are already released, because that just leads to timeless melody debacle. I think that is perfectly fine. At the same time, I think there should have been better preview options for people to see which outfit has or doesn't have modesty panels, especially when the modesty panel is as large as it is with the 2.6 5-star, because that one, photographed from the front, just looks really goddamn bizarre. That would be my full opinion on this. Just so you know, I have absolutely nothing against the people that posted their opinion here on the modesty panels. I'm just saying that the modesty panel conversation has happened as the bigger Western conversation on the censorship of Infinity Nikki's boobs. And let's just close off with this post. My take on the censorship for the titty committee. There's a lot of discussion and I wanted to add my own. First of all, existing outfits shouldn't be changed or added to the mesh to cover Nikki's cleavage, especially without warning. You can't change your product when it's out. Plus, changing Timeless Melody's alternative version to have a higher neckline is false advertising, because it was advertised with its original neckline and I requested it's changed back. It is a very expressive dress too. Second, I read some opinions on having the mesh on some items and not on others, as it would be the best for both parties, the ones who don't want cleavage and the ones who do. I disagree. The mesh in itself is ugly. If you prefer to dress more modest, there's tons of choices. Same the other way. But I don't think the mesh is the way. Developers can easily make tops higher, lower, more or less modest. It doesn't cater to your taste, don't buy the product, that's it. There's tons of modest alternatives and clothes to choose from. Changing the ones already existing is unacceptable for people that like them that way. Thirdly, in my opinion, the modesty mindset is misogynistic. What exactly makes something modest? What is considered modest? Are women's bodies so indecent that cleavage is considered not modest? Viewing women's bodies so inherently sexual, inappropriate, and obscene is misogynistic. Me existing in my body and wearing what I want doesn't make it inappropriate or obscene. Showing cleavage doesn't make it sexual. Wanting cleavage to be covered because it's sexual? Wrong. Wanting to cover more of her skin because that's what you like? Right. There's no right or wrong way in what we wear. It's how you like yourself. Censoring Nikki's cleavage because you don't think it's appropriate is not my problem. There's a tons of other options, less revealing if you don't like it, but leave existing outfits untouched. Lastly, the censor was done very fast and very poorly. It's disheartening how fast Info reacted to a small group of people complaining about modesty. It shows how the world is going. The mesh is more visible in tan skin and it looks horrible. It also doesn't make any sense. Some tops and dresses have it and others, even more revealing ones, don't. I personally requested to be taken down. In future outfits, it would be better to mix between different length necklines and stuff to cater to everyone, but no more ugly mesh. The last photo dress doesn't have mesh, and it's not indecent at all. After this controversy, I think it will be more complicated for us to get a swimsuit or bikini or lingerie, like in Love and Shining Nikki. I do hope that eventually they add them, and all this modesty and whatnot talk dies down. I personally be revolving? I assume revolting. I added this into my complaints post, and I will be doing the next Starlight contests with Nikki's cleavage as a form of protest. It's ironic that censoring cleavage brought more attention to it. So this is where we're closing the whole conversation on what has happened on the Western side after the Timeless Melody censorship drama. After this post, to talk about it has kind of died down. Some people still post pictures of cleavage. I feel like the focus fell more on cleavage more than it did on the point of you can't change outfits after they have been released. But there is quite a lot of good conversation that has happened, especially when it comes to modesty panels. So, what is your whole take on this? What do you think Nikki should and shouldn't wear? Do you think modesty panels should be released with clothing? Do you think they shouldn't be released with clothing? In my opinion, I'm fine with them existing, but I need a better preview than what we have right now, because I want to be able to see them on the model, if they are included, without me needing to kind of go for clues hunt. And now I almost feel like that's another thing that I check whenever I'm gonna be doing like outfit review videos. So it's like, how does it dye? How does it run? Does it clip with itself, especially? Does it have a modesty panel? All of this just because we don't have a like proper preview. It shouldn't be as hard to preview clothes as it is in Infinity Nikki. You should be able to zoom in on the preview. You should be able to change the skin tones in the preview. You should have some sort of open space to run around in that dress just to see how it runs whenever they release a new 5-star, just to see if it's like a good purchase or not. We really shouldn't need to rely on YouTubers to buy outfits to then test them out, then figure out if they have all the things that you like or don't have all the things that you don't like, you know, that sort of thing. So this is where I'm gonna put this discussion to bed for now, mainly because Infold is quiet, not a peep. And I think the Western audience has gotten distracted. So my hope is that people upkeep the pressure the same way that they upkept the pressure with the deer jump not working. And I do hope that the Chinese players also keep up the pressure to get either Timeless Melody uncensored or people compensated and a promise that other outfits won't get changed after their release, just so that we can purchase what we're purchasing and know what we're purchasing when we're purchasing something, which I think is the bare minimum of buying anything online. So this is the whole topic. Please express your opinions in the comment section down below. I read all of them. I respond to some. I heart others. So yeah, thank you for watching, through sitting through all of this with me. This has been a lot, but all of this conversation feels important and feels like something that needs to happen. So I hope that I'm gonna see you on my other videos. Thank you so much, my Patreon supporters, and toodaloo for now.